We are underway. Hey, last week I apologize to those of you who missed the recording. So I did last week's call, that content with the Australian team, and I will send that out along with this call, which is new material in case you missed it. So you'll have two batches of me on audio, okay? And last week, well, some of you need a heading because you're dying to take notes. So this is all about how to avoid being overworked and overwhelmed, okay? How to avoid being overworked and overwhelmed. And the reason I was talking about this is it ties in beautifully to what we've been talking about. And for some of you, all the excitement of recent meetings like leads has sort of worn off and you're like, oh, same thing again this week. Here we go. How do I do it? So I want to talk some more about Quadrant II and about being balanced. Last week, we talked about the book, The 1 Minute Manager Gets Balanced. And we talked about 4 moderators that can keep your life moderated and balanced. Does anybody remember what they are? Raise your hand. Okay, we have 3 people. That's good. Well, let me remind you. They were autonomy, which is the sense of being in control of your life. Like you have choices and you can execute them. Connectedness with other people around you. You have a social structure. Perspective, which is all about your sense of mission, your sense of purpose, the fact that you're moving in a certain direction. That gives you moderation. And the other one was tone, which is just staying in shape, how you feel about your body, your appearance. Your appearance, that's how you're helping your clients. You're helping with confidence. Their appearance, you know, that helps them do business better. So they're very interesting and useful moderators that you can adopt. So you can do anything, as you recall, but not everything. So that is something to write down. Because when I was much younger, I thought, I'm just going to do everything. But you can't. You can do anything, but you have to focus. You can't do everything. So let me start with a story. As I left you last week, I said the key to balance is to notice when you're not. So this week, I had a very interesting dinner with a friend that I have known for a number of years. We'll call her Teresa. How about that? Wink. All right. So Teresa and I were having dinner because she called me. She texted me and said, please come have dinner with me because there's a lot going on in my life and I need some help. And I said, fine. My coaching fee is $800 an hour. I'd be happy to have dinner with you. No, I didn't say that. I said, sure, I'd be happy to. So we went to this Thai place and she told me literally, and I believe this because I know her well, she's the type of person that is talented. And so when upper management, like the CEO, sees talent, they tend to go, oh, here's a project. Oh, you did that well. Here's a project. Oh, you did that well. Here's another project. Oh, you did that well. And then what you find in corporate America, at least, is that you continue to rise up the ladder till you hit your ceiling of complexity, where you cannot do anything more by yourself and you start to fall apart because you're living in Quadrant 1. Well, Teresa, as we'll call her, she was living in Quadrant 1 massively. She did a great job. She took over an operation that was ailing and failing and helped turn it around. And it has 10,000 reps. Hello, okay? A little different from LGFG. 10,000 reps, and they basically said, okay, here, you're in charge. Hire some people, teach them what they need to know, make it happen. And she literally she said, I've been working 7 days a week. I've been working 14 and 15-hour days. I haven't seen any of my friends. I have to fly out of town twice a week, twice a month for a whole week at a time. I haven't gone to church in months, which was important to her. So she said this, quote, I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, I said, what do you think's the problem? She said, I have no boundaries. I accept everything because I have to do everything because it's all up to me. Okay. So we see a classic case of Quadrant 1, somebody that's just swimming in urgent details and important details. And that is not the zone we want to be in. So I counseled her, and we'll probably talk about her a little bit more as we go through this call, but how can you overcome things that prevent you from being your best? And how can you become effective, not just at keeping your head above water, and because work is eating you alive, but how can you just go with the flow and have a great time and be productive? Well, I am familiar with a book by Scott Eblin, and it's called Overworked and Overwhelmed. Overworked and Overwhelmed, the Mindfulness Alternative. Ooh, Overworked and Overwhelmed, the Mindfulness Alternative. And for those of you who are like, I've got too many books to read, I got this giant stack of books, and every time I talk to somebody, I got to buy more books. I'm sick of books. I'll just give you the short version. Every time you talk to me, here's the good news. You don't have to buy books. I will simply get them, read them, and then give you the crux. Here's one I'm reading. Leadership and Self-Deception. Oh, yes. We are all so self-deceiving, but more about that later. That's coming up sometime. All right. So Scott Eblin, this author, says there are simple, relatively easy steps you can take to pull your life from the brink of what my friend's going through, Teresa. He says, I'm confident that working harder isn't one of the keys to success. So he said there's simple, easy steps you can take to pull yourself back, but he said, I'm confident working harder is not what you're thinking about. So let's talk about mindfulness a little bit. Mindfulness, some of you are familiar with that term because you practice it. Tisa, yes. Mindfulness is the alternative to overworked and overwhelmed. Let me define what that means, what the author means by that. Mindfulness to him is doing simple things that make us more aware of what's going on around us and inside us, and then being intentional about what we're going to do or not do next. I want to repeat that. Mindfulness is doing simple things that make you more aware of what's going on around you and inside you, and then being intentional about what you're going to do or not do. So he says this. Here comes thesis. 2 reasons that you might feel you're overworked and overwhelmed. This applies to my friend that I had dinner with. Too much of a good thing is the first reason. Too much of a good thing. In other words, overused strengths make you weak. Overused strengths make you weak. So you have to figure out how to delegate and have other people help you. What my friend was doing, since she was good at many things, she wanted to do many things because she didn't trust anyone to do it. Her attitude was this, and you may have heard this saying, at least we have this in America. It's, if you want to get it done right, do it yourself. And that is the classic Quadrant I liver. That's not what you want to do. So you can do too much of a good thing. You know, one of these calls, I'm going to go through my portfolio sort cards with you. And these are all really interesting cards. There are, I think, 81 of them. This is what we call a digression. But what these cards do, and I used to use them for when I was doing coaching with my team and performance evaluations. So on one side, it has what a skill, like this one says, a strength is career ambition. Well, you flip the card over and it says overuse skill. And so what's the overuse? When you overuse your skill, you use your skill, it becomes a weakness. And then there's always, anyway, these cards are fun. We're going to have a whole call probably on those cards. So too much of a good thing, like if you always go to your strength all the time and that's all you rely on in every situation, and it becomes overused and it becomes a weakness. So think about that. Number 2, the second reason you can get overworked is you're playing against your strengths. Working too hard to be good at things you're just not wired to be good at. That hinders your best. You know, I am not good at accounting. I mean, I took an accounting course in university. I understand basic Excel, basic. And I used to do budgets in my previous life. So I'd have to use Excel and work on budgets. But I mean, it was always such a headache to sit there and just look at numbers and spreadsheets all day on my computer when it was budget time. And then they would call me into budget meetings. Guess what happened? Headaches. That was not my strength. Now, some of you are like, yeah, numbers, give it. Woo, I hate people. Give me spreadsheets. That's fine. That's your gifting, that area. You're in your zone. It was not for me. So the flip side of the coin is you can either have too much of a good thing and make it a weakness, or you can play against your strengths and try to work doing something that you're just not good at. And let me tell you, if you just started LGFG and you're going, I'm not very good at selling yet. I'm not talking about that. You just suck because you don't have the skill yet. That doesn't mean that you're like, oh, I'm in the wrong career. I better switch, become a truck driver. No. Okay, so hear me well, rookies. All right, so those are two reasons that Scott Eblin says you're overworked and overwhelmed. So what you've got to do then is intentionally manage your time so you have a fighting chance of showing up and being your best. All right, so I'm going to give you 10 tips. How about that? I know you like numbers. I know you like to keep track of what I'm saying. So I'm giving you 10 tips for managing your time with mindfulness. Mindfulness, all right? That's the key word here. So number one is this: overcoming the tyranny of the present. Overcoming the tyranny of the present is tip number one. In other words, I know when I was selling, I was so into like the next moment, the next sale, like rehearsing my names, getting everything just right. What this means is that's the tyranny of the present. You've got to pick your head up and look to the future sometimes. That's why it's so good on weekends to take time to reflect, to look ahead, to plan, to prepare, to get in Quadrant II, even if it's for just a little while. All right, that's number one. Number two, this is a great question to ask, especially as you start to open your own offices and become partners and move up the chain of command and take on more responsibility. My friend needed to ask this a lot. Ask yourself, is this really even necessary? Is this really even necessary? And sometimes you'll find if the answer is, well, we've always done it that way. That was deadly. Even at Southwestern, which was the 150-year-old company I worked with, if somebody said, we've always done it that way, that was just like dinosaur talk. So you want to make sure that you ask yourself when you're taking on more and more tasks, is this task even really necessary? So my assignment to my friend, one of them I gave her, was to go and practice delegating and to practice saying no to requests politely, just going, you know, I really can't do that right now. I'll get back to you. Just saying no, because all she was really good at was saying yes. That was one of her strengths. Yes, I'll take care of it. Yes, sir, right away, sir. I'll do that. You bet. You can count on me. At some point, you have to draw the line. We're only human. Number three, suggestion from this book. He says, push your calendar reset button. Push your calendar reset button. Let me give you a couple sub thoughts on what that means. You have to ask yourself, and I did a call on this, but you have to ask yourself, what's most important to get done today and this week? What is most important to get done today? A useful question, because we can get caught in all kinds of activities that seem really important and keep us busy, but they're not vital. So ask yourself, what's most important that needs to get done today, or for sure this week, if you're thinking about Cubby. And then number two, under this calendar reset, is schedule your distractions for a later future time. Schedule your distractions for later. You know, there's all kinds of things that get us distracted, right? You guys know what they are. You know what you do. You're just like, man, I've been calling a lot. I just need to have a little Facebook break, whatever. And it's right in the middle of your prime time calling. Not a good idea. You've got to schedule that distraction for later. Okay, so that's number three. Hit that calendar reset. Number four, I like this one. This is vital. If you're a student of NLP, or if you've read any of Tony Robbins' book, you might appreciate this. But Scott Eblin says movement is the killer app. Movement. In other words, sometimes, especially when we're locked into thinking deeply or concentrating or doing calls, he says the average person, and I know you guys aren't average, but the typical human being on the planet can do about 45 minutes to 90 minutes of focused concentration with no interruptions. And then at that point, the attention span starts to wane a little bit. So he says, do this. Get up, walk, stretch at your desk, breathe deeply. You know, I always like to inhale, like for a 10 count, hold my breath for about 10 count, and then exhale out for a 10 count. And you feel the little tingly stuff going on up here. And that's called oxygen going to your brain. It's really, really helpful. So if you're yawning a lot, especially, stretch, breathe. But he says the killer app is movement. Break your state. You know, that's all Tony Robbins. Break your state. All right. Number 5. The other killer app he talks about is during your Quadrant II time, you've got to reflect. You have to reflect. Give yourself time, he says, for unconscious thought. Give yourself time for unconscious thought. That's number 5. Reflect. Be quiet. Pray. He said journal. How many of you journal? Raise your hand. Okay, few of you. Some of you you've muted your video, which makes it really hard for me to get visual feedback, but that's okay. So you want to make sure that you take time to unwind and reflect on the week. Where were my wins? What could I do better? Let's look ahead to the next week and look at it in week-long chunks. Okay, so meditate, pray, get centered, journal. All right, number 6. You'll like this one. This is right out of Covey. I don't know if he copied him, but he says, schedule your most important rocks first. I'll explain what rocks are. Rocks are priorities. Let's just write down priorities. So schedule your most priorities first. First things first. So when I had dinner with my friend, she said, you know what? I have completely forgotten all my priorities. I mean, the things that are most important to me are my family, my friends, those relationships, the community, and impacting people and other young women at church. I said, well, she said, I don't even do those things anymore. I said, that would be draining. So it was basically like taking, you know, a full water bottle and pouring it out and then continue to try to drink from an empty bottle. It doesn't work. We empty ourselves and we need to get refilled. And a lot of times we can do that by thinking about priorities and keeping first things first. So what's most important to you? That's what you've got to focus on, right? Okay, let's keep going. Number, what are we on? 6? 7? 7? Yes, thank you. Thank you for nodding. All right, number 7 is set boundaries and guidelines. Set boundaries and guidelines. And just like she said, I have no boundaries. So that can be bad. So you've got to be able to say, you know what, in order to take on this good task, I'm going to have to change this other task. In order to say yes, I'm going to have to say no to this. And they say that the good is oftentimes the enemy of the best. That's really true. There are some things that you guys need to stop doing in order that you can start doing the things you know you should be doing. Okay, so you got to set some guidelines for yourself, and the key is all discipline. You know, if you got to be disciplined to pull it off. All right, number 8. This kind of flows with the other ones. Eblin says, use yes and no strategically. Use yes and no strategically. Avoid a mindless yes. Okay, avoid just again. If you're taking on bonus projects for LGFG, it's a great thing. You want to be a team player, but you don't want to become like my friend and just be a total person that's like, yes, all the time. Yes, I'll do that. And then spend hours executing a project. All right. Number 9. This one's good. We've talked about it before. We'll talk about it again. He calls it the distraction dragon. Tame your distraction dragon. What's your distraction? I mean, everybody has a different one. Some people are drawn to social media. Some people can't resist checking their Instagram when you get notified. So, and just here's a hint, turn off your notifications on your laptop. You don't need to see everything up to the minute, like bling. You don't hear a little ding and then say, oh my gosh, an email came in. I need to attend to that immediately. No, you don't. Tame that, turn it off. If you can turn off that will buy you all kinds of time to be more useful. All right, and here's number 10. This is sort of a team concept, but Evelyn says, consider your impact. People are taking their cues from you. Consider your impact. Other people around you are taking their cues from you. In other words, we can't just say, oh, I'm just an island unto myself. No, you impact other people around you. That's why if you've got somebody in your team that really has a crap attitude, somebody needs to talk to them about it. You know, if they're having a hard time, go for a walk and say, what is up? Because all of us impact each other, whether we like it or not. We do it for good. We do it for not so good. Okay. So those are the 10 tips to how to be mindful in managing your time. And the good news in all this is that even a few moments of routines like breathing deeply from your belly, you should try that once. Breathe, go ahead. From your diaphragm, not up here, but from down here. That's when you're singing, you have to use your diaphragm. If you breathe deeply from your belly, that's a great thing. It's a simple thing for mindfulness, just getting up from your desk to stretch for a few minutes. Or what we used to do when we were stuck in the marketing team and we couldn't think, we would take 10 minutes to walk around the corporate office building and just be outside. I'm not talking about taking half a day off because you have a light headache. I'm just saying you need to just take a tiny little break, and that can reactivate your rest and digest response and get you out of a chronic state of fight or flight, which is what a lot of us do. Okay, so there you go. Those are some thoughts on how to avoid being overworked and overwhelmed, and how you can pace yourself. Before the call started, we were talking about my swim meet that I just had on Saturday, where I swam 6 events and went pretty fast, but I am a sprinter. So I understand, like, take your mark, and then it's over. You're like, woo, I'm done. I am not like some of you guys. Some of you are cross-country people, so you're like, and you just can pace yourself. This is what we're talking about, mindful pacing yourself in your life. And you're like, oh, here comes the water station. Okay, cool. There we go. Only 10 miles to go. That is not my normal state. I like the sprint mode, but we need to think that LGFG and what we're doing is more of a marathon than a sprint. Okay. And you can have a sprint mentality for part of the day, but you have to really pace yourself in your life, or else you just burn out. No one can sprint a marathon. It doesn't work well. Right? So let's be mindful and let's do well. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Any comments from the gallery? Or this make you, or any strategies that you have that you use to stay mindful and intentional during the week? I'm looking at each of the little boxes. People are looking down. They're like, yes, if I look down, he won't call on me. Good. Okay, good strategy. It's very strategic. All right, I will terminate the call. Thank you for tuning in. We will do this again, hopefully next week. And yeah, are you saying something? Or are you just saying goodbye? Okay, now I get a response from people. Now folks are excited. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for recording, Momik. We'll see you guys. Have a great week.